Please like and subscribe to channel if you enjoyed the video. My 22 male girlfriend 23 female cheated on me 6 months ago. My obsessiveness of the topic has become toxic. So this is a bit complicated and would like to hear some opinions on the matter and how I should feel. So basically around last January, I broke up with my girlfriend of 2 years, a couple of months after graduating college. She still had a semester left in school while I was looking for a full-time job while living about an hour away, back home with my parents. I was extremely stressed about starting my career and felt I was devoting too much time to our relationship. I also felt that we were somewhat toxic with our habits, like smoking weed and wasting time, as I sometimes can be a workaholic. I chose to break up with her because of that. I found a full-time gig a couple of months later and moved over a state, but was still within 2 hours away from seeing her. We took a couple of weeks apart from one another, but eventually communication resumed and we began hanging out and up again. We established that we would exclusively with each other as we weren't looking for anything else. We both still expressed our love for one another and shared many mutual interests, which made it difficult for us not to talk about and bond with each other. I was unsure of what my future was with her, as she did not have concrete plans of her own after school, and I wanted to know what she wanted to do before I decided to look elsewhere. I reiterated this to her multiple times throughout our break. Come April and May of this year, she is applying for jobs and having trouble landing a position, immediately causing her to experience similar stress to what I was experiencing when I first graduated. She later told me as we were discussing the infidelity that she now understood the stress I was experiencing, and having to also worry about another person's future while sorting out your own was a lot to handle. That stress overwhelmed her, and I stayed by her side, encouraging her and even offering her to come live with me so she wouldn't have to move in with her family again, which can be a toxic environment. We talked almost every day and saw each other at least every other week depending on my work schedule. Anytime that my work wasn't consuming me, I was spending with her. Come the beginning of May, the pressure is on for her to land a job and no offers had come for her, and I can tell she is stressed. We were having a conversation one day and it turned the direction of up with other people. Although I was single at the time, I had no intention of looking elsewhere, as in my eyes, she was all I needed physically and emotionally. With her being, I asked if she was trying to with other women, and although I can't remember the exact context of the conversation, I remember the line that stood out to me the most from her was, "No, I'm not going to with women." I should have pressed more there, but I chose not to. Throughout the day, that phrase began eating me up, and I created a Tinder account that night and set my location to in her city. I kept swiping till I saw her Tinder profile. The next day, I confronted her with that profile and her deliberate phrasing of what she said. She broke down and confessed that the stress of her future was weighing on her and she was just using it to get an ego boost, and she hadn't slept with anyone, which was true at the time. She also admitted her phrasing was intentional to get in my head, and it was a bad habit she learned from her family. She didn't know why she wanted to hurt me in that manner, but ensured she hadn't up with anyone. I told her I still wanted to make things work for us, but I wanted her to focus on finding a job in her career first, as personally, that was my priority at that point in my life as well. I told her I couldn't handle her up with other people, and she promised she would never do that to me. That was all on May 4th. On May 14th, she actually matched and talked to a guy on Tinder who happened to be in the same apartment complex as her, and they had once. I didn't know about this for the next month as we continued to see each other, and as well. On the beginning of June, she landed 3 interviews for jobs in LA, California. We lived on the East Coast, and eventually landed one to begin in September. I was ecstatic for her and visited her sometime mid-June. We spent the weekend together, and before I left we were going to have a romantic dinner. While she was in the shower, I looked through her phone as her body language was defensive when I said a couple of things earlier, and noticed she still had Tinder installed, but not on her home screen. I looked through it and saw her messaging a few people from the month prior, but nothing recently. She exchanged Snapchats with a couple of them, and when I looked on her Snapchat, I noticed she talked to one of them a month prior, and she saved his room number at their complex, tipping me off that she met this guy. After she got out of the shower, I confronted her, and she didn't deny that she saw a guy once. At the time of the confrontation, she only admitted to making out and oral, but the next day she admitted to having with him, likely because I broke down crying during the confrontation. I left and talked to her the next day. Both of us were still emotional about it. Over the next few weeks, we discussed what happened. She admitted since we technically didn't have a relationship label, at the time she didn't feel she did anything wrong but felt disgusted after the act and quit using Tinder a couple of days later. She told me the stress of starting her adult life was a lot and she got selfish. She thought that we weren't going to work out because I wouldn't want to reignite things and wanted to look beyond me. She wasn't sure how much longer we were going to be like this and it was confusing her. When trying to reconcile, I proposed and she agreed that I should be allowed a free pass to another girl, which I did about a month or two later, although it was only oral. She was my first and only girlfriend and only girl I ever was physical with. While with her and also while broken up, I never thought about sleeping with another woman, but after this happened I somewhat wanted to try something different to get some experience, for some selfish reasons, but also to help my bruised ego. That was my one and only time up with someone different, and it was not enjoyable. It did, however, help my ego and lessen some of my anger in the whole situation. My girlfriend didn't seem hurt after I revealed to her I went through with it, as she saw it as only fair. We spent a lot of time together afterwards, some like our old selves and other times cold and uncomfortable. We eventually officially put a label back on us, and I even helped her drive a U-Haul for 2 straight days across the country to help her move to LA. It's been about 6 months and we've been slowly getting better, but there are still some lingering effects from it. I visited her in LA for the past 2 weeks and that went mostly well, although sometimes I got in my head about things with small triggers like infidelity in a TV show and sometimes not being able to get off during with feeling somewhat inadequate, although I got her off almost every time. I went through her phone near the end of the trip and downloaded Tinder to see if she made another account, which she did and had a few matches but no conversations. I also checked her Snapchat messages to see if she was communicating with any guys, but there were none. When I confronted her that morning, she told me she made the Tinder because she was having trouble meeting people, but when she saw the type of matches she was getting, she deleted it, which I believe. I had been talking with her almost every evening after she got off work, so it would be pretty hard for her to schedule in a fling. I can't help to feel, especially since we started a LDR, that I have become a bit obsessive over this, not that she has done anything since, but what the future holds. She plans to move back to the East Coast in a couple of years once she gets some experience under her belt and we can live together or close together at least. We both really love each other, share many mutual interests, and are each other's best friends, making it hard for me to let go of something that was going well for so long. If anyone has any advice for me to help cope and get over this, please do, as I have been immature at times with handling this. Also, any advice for her end to improve things and reassure me would be appreciated. I also am somewhat unsure if I am overreacting since we technically didn't have a label at the time it happened, although I thought our companionship was enough for loyalty. Thank you for anyone who took the time to read the whole thing. Any advice you can give would be greatly appreciated in helping me in our relationship. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please like and subscribe to the channel.